I wanted to write this book from the point of view of you guys, to be one of the people who cares more and more about eating good food, about the whole farm-to-table movement, Thomas Keller, about these wonderful chefs who have really adopted this idea of caring about ingredients right from the beginning through to the plate. And I wanted to extend that to wine and to think about what is the motivation for people to do this. And you will find in wine regions across the whole world, and in Bordeaux over the last really 5 to 10 years, there has been a shift, quite a significant shift, in terms of how people are thinking about sustainability. And classified growths like Palmer are estates which are being handed over from generation to generation, which are charging an awful lot of money per bottle to us as consumers. And so I think there's a real sense of responsibility to ensure that they are handing on vineyards which will be sustainable over the long term. And it's how do you convince them, how do you make the case? So if we could start actually there, because Palmer, this stunning third growth in Margaux, was in the situation where Thomas had to convince the people who were on the board of Palmer that his choice was the right one. So maybe we could start there.
Well, before convincing the shareholders, we have to be convinced ourselves, which was not really obvious quite a while ago now, just because what we've been studying at school was everything but organic farming and the biodynamic approach. What we've been studying at school was really this scientific approach that is the result of what we call here in France les 30 glorieuses. So all the time after the Second World War, where productivism became something major in every kind of field, but in agriculture in particular. So in the old days, the way my team and I would see a vine was very simple. For us, it was like a little factory using minerals from the soil, using nitrogen, using CO2, using sun energy to produce something. And our job as engineers was to make sure that those little factories would work fine, that we had the right oil at the right point, When we decided to experiment biodynamic, it was mostly by curiosity. So it was just after the 2008 harvest. Of course, we had several chances to hear people talking about biodynamic. Most of the time, they had long hair. They were talking moon, planets. They were talking very strange preparation out of a horn that you would dig, somewhere, whatever. We were like, whoa, that's very different from our little factory approach. But, in life, if you want to understand something, you have to experiment. So we decided to put together very, very small experimentation. One block divided in 2 pieces, one classically grown, and another one following, so said, the biodynamic approach. And we had 2 very interesting results. One was that we were able, on this little plot, to grow vines without any pesticides, no chemicals. Hey, that cannot hurt, Second result, in 2009, when we made the wine from this little plot, and when we compare it with the wine from the other plot, the wine from the biodynamic plot was not worse than the classic one. That means that we were able to grow a vineyard and we were able to make a decent wine from it. 2011, the wine from a plot biodynamically farmed was the best we had ever produced. So we said, well, it's not only same quality or not worse, but it can be better. And I'm going to talk about the better idea later. And we started to have feelings. Feelings that instead to see the vine as this little factory and thinking machinery, we started to see the ensemble. We started to have this, what we call holistic vision of this farm. Holistic vision means that the vine and the vines are important. The soil has a sense. The life in the soil is important. All the weeds, all the trees, everything was important. A little bit like if this farm was a living organism where all elements should be in harmony. No pesticides, this holistic vision, and a very interesting view of the future. And so now that was the time for us to go to our shareholders and to try to convince them to move this direction. It was easy. It was easy for several reasons. One was to explain that by avoiding any chemicals, we would preserve the soil, the life of this soil, and so the future of the place, the future of the asset. Easy. Second, people working in the vineyard would not be exposed anymore to chemicals. That makes sense, you know. Wine consumer, food consumer are paying more and more attention to the way those products are made. So let's try to go the right direction. And last point, we were convinced that slowly but surely, going this direction, we could have a better link, a shorter link between the vine, between the wine, and the place where the fruit comes from. The idea being that we're not liquid with alcohol producer. We try to put in a glass a place. When you drink a glass of Chateau Carbonnieux, when you drink a glass of Chateau Palmer, what you want is to drink a place, to drink a product that cannot be produced elsewhere. And we had the feeling that going this direction would help.
So I would like to pick up on that and to ask you, one of the things that I found very interesting when I was researching this, wherever I was asking about biodynamics around the world, everybody had different ideas maybe for why they started, but what everybody found was that it changed their relationship with their staff, with the other people that worked at the vineyard. And because it's not something that you can half do, everybody has to be committed to it. So I'd love to hear from Thomas about that, about how it changes not just the vines, but the people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we spoke about the shareholders.
Yeah.
Of course, they were important to convince, because without their agreement, that wasn't an option. But we are a little bit more than 60 now at Chateau Palmer, and without everybody's commitment, this is not an option either.
How many were you back when you started Biodynamics? Have you increased the number of people?
Yes, a little bit. I think we were 50 probably, and we're now 60. Is it more labor intensive? Yes and no. What is different is that you have to be very dedicated to the vineyard, and you have to be in the vineyard all the time. Just to give you an idea, we were talking mildew, this disease that can damage and destroy the crop. When you use chemicals, you spray the chemicals, they will go inside the vine, and they will protect the vine from the inside. So if it does rain, which is a problem for mildew, when you have rain, the mildew can develop, no problem, because the vine is protected from the inside. When you are organic or biodynamic, the only thing you can use is a natural product that is called bouillie bordelaise, copper sulfate. It is just on the outside, and if it rains, so the vine is protected, but after a few millimeters of rain, the copper sulfate is washed, and so the vine is not protected. So what happened? I mean, The vine is protected by a spray. It rains. Good. And then you know that you'll have another rain in 2 or 3 days. You have to go in the vineyard again. When with the chemicals, no problem. 12 days, protected, fine. So that means that, well, this year we had a very difficult spring, very challenging. We had to be in the vineyard twice on a Sunday. So you really need a dedicated team. For example, we have cows. You know, this famous 500 preparation, this is a horn. You will put manure on it. It has to be a beautiful cow poop, you know. You have to choose it very carefully. When it's from your own estate, it makes even more sense because the cow used the matter from the place. So you put this beautiful poo in the horn, you bury the horn for the entire winter, and then you take it back, and you will use this preparation, 130 gram per hectare in water that you will dynamize, and you will spray it on the land.
So by dynamize basically means stir very, very fast in a particular way. And how many horns do you bury?
We do 100 a year.
So this is what's so fascinating, is you hear these things, and you think, okay, a cow horn. And then you get into the actual dynamics of it, the actual mechanics of it. And there is a lot of horns that you're burying. And it's really fascinating. But how do you pick where you bury them? And
yeah, it's a special field. So it sounds totally crazy, you know? Because let me tell you, the idea is a cow with 2 horns will be like a big antenna that will grab all the energy, the waves from the cosmos. That's the idea. This horn with the manure on it in dirt for 8 months will capture those waves from the cosmos, and this manure will have a lot of energy. Okay, so when I'm talking like that, you say, okay, stop it. Where are your long hairs? Well, I don't have any. First thing, when you take the poo in the field and you put it in the horn, it doesn't smell fantastic, I must say. When you take this horn out of the soil after 8 months, it smells fantastic. When you do the spray and you look at what happens in the land, you can really feel that there is life again. It's incredible.
This is something that's really important to note as well. On a more general level, and for everybody who is farming, and it's not just about vines, but farming in lots of things, one of the unarguable effects of having had 30, 40, 50 years of quite intensive agriculture all over the world is that there's a lot less life in our soils today as there was before. That is no question that is measurable scientifically. So that's one of the things that's particularly fascinating with biodynamics, is seeing that soil come back to life.
10 years ago, after let's say 10 days of dry weather, I would go in our vineyard, I would take a little bit of dirt like that, I would do that. Now if I do the same, everything stays in my hand. A lot of little roots, a lot of life. Beautiful structure of the soil. Difference between organic and biodynamic is that organic, you just avoid chemicals. Biodynamic, you have a different approach of farming, you know. This different approach will definitely help to have better life, better balance between all those elements. And I am convinced that a soil biodynamically farmed may work in a better way than just organic. Yeah. So biodynamic is not organic plus. Biodynamic is just a global vision.
I think that really is an important point, that it looks at everything from a very different point of view. Whereas with organic, you're not really, of course it's still fantastic and a great thing to do, but you're not really changing the way you approach what you do at each different time of the year. You're simply using different products to do those same things. Whereas biodynamics is very much you start again at the beginning and you look at how you do everything, and it's very different.
But in the end, it's just back to the way it was, you know.
Yeah.
What was a farm in the early 1800s? It was just a place with a little bit of vineyard, fruit trees, a few animals, a little bit of barley, blah, 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 blah. Autonomy.
Yeah.
And why? Because to fertilize your vine, you need manure, etc., etc. Today, what? Few years ago, after harvest, time to fertilize, I would check a catalog. Oh, I have a good price for this, or I have a good price for that. Let's bring it from the outside. Let's put it in the vineyard. That's it. Nowadays, harvest done, cover crop, weeds everywhere. I open the gate, 250 sheep in the vineyard, mowing the cover crop, using the cover crop to fertilize. Easy. I mean, nothing revolutionary. It has always been like that in the past. Best peaches you can ever experience are what we call in French les pêches de vigne. So peaches that come from the peach tree in the middle of the vineyard. If you look at the vineyard now, no peach trees, no cherry trees, and they were in the past. And so we are trying to replant those trees in the middle of, well, on the side of the vineyard, but in the middle of the vineyard as well. And that's another thing, you know, when in front of my board I'm explaining that we start to pull out vines to plant fruit trees.
Happy with that.
Yeah. But in the end, you know, a tree is like, has a lot of effects. One works like a water regulation. Too much water, because it's much bigger than the vine. Not enough, it will go super deep and just help the water to come back. We also made a study on insect diversity. And as soon as you have something else than a vine, a tree, a forest, you have a much better diversity, which is very helpful to control the pest, the one you don't want.
Yeah,
you know?
so you don't have to use the chemical pesticides
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you have a...
Again, look at the forest. You know, there's not just one type of trees, a lot of different species living together.
I'm always approached by clients wanting to know, do you have organic wine? Do you have biodynamic wine? So from a commercial standpoint, it'd be helpful to kind of get some clarity on that and help us with this, because consumers are very interested in this process and the wines made biodynamically or organically or natural wine.
Organic, biodynamic, natural. First answer, very simple. Certifications do exist for organic wines, for biodynamic wines, no certification for natural wines. Okay? So I can tell you my wine is a natural wine, and all you have to say is, okay, that's it. You know? Organic wine, as I said before, is a wine that is made with fruits organically farmed, which means no chemicals. A biodynamic wine is a wine made with fruits biodynamically farmed, following Rudolf Steiner philosophy, and I tried to explain earlier what it was. Basically, this is this holistic vision that just helps you to see your farm as an ensemble. Okay? So not just a production thing. Natural wine, not easy to explain. The idea behind natural wine is that a wine could be made without anything, which is interesting as an approach, even if you harvest a little bit of fruit, you crush it, you put it in a bucket, you come 1 week later, will it be wine? Vinegar. So natural wine is vinegar, basically. Okay? I mean, we are not able to make wine without SO2. We are able to lower, but we're not there yet. I mean, 0 SO2, I don't know how to do. So I have a lot of respect for those guys. I don't have respect for people who taste those kind of wines when they are just everywhere, full of problems, VA, oxidation.
Volatile acidity.
Yes, volatile acidity, so vinegar. A lot of things that are not appropriate. And oh my gosh, this is terroir. Bullshit. No, this is not terroir. This is incompetence. That's very different.
Is the market receiving and giving you value for the tremendous efforts which you've done?
You know, when you talk taste, it's always subjective. That's why, you know, the point system, sorry, Jane. I love to read what she writes.
Of course.
But so it's very difficult to give you a very precise answer. My feeling is that time after time, we have more precision in what we're doing. And what I mean is that I have one plot in mind, a very old Merlot named La Chevalière. It has always been the most sophisticated Merlot of the estate. And nowadays, this Merlot, the wine from La Chevalière, is more sophisticated than it has always been. That means that each personality expresses itself in a much clearer way. First part of my answer. Second part, does the market respond to what we're doing? Yes and no. I think the quality of our wines is recognized, and I'm very happy, very grateful. But I don't think that we have success because we are biodynamic. We have success because our wines are good, and biodynamic helps.